The first thing I saw when I came through the sliding doors was not my brother. It was rain, silver and restless under the airport lights, running down the glass in crooked lines. Beyond it, cars idled along the curb with their hazards blinking, each one swallowing people into warm interiors and driving them back toward lives that still seemed to know what shape they were supposed to have. I stood there with one suitcase, one backpack, and a phone buzzing with 3 unread messages from the man who had spent 2 years calling me his partner, only when no one important was close enough to hear. Ryan was supposed to be waiting in the pickup lane. My older brother was many things: loud, stubborn, chronically late to birthdays. But he did not forget airport pickups, especially not mine. Not after I had texted him my flight number twice and made a joke about becoming one of those tragic adults who moved back home with emotional damage and a carry-on full of wrinkled shirts. He had replied with, "Shut up. I'll be there." But Ryan was not there. My phone buzzed again. I looked down, expecting another message from my ex that I would pretend not to read. Instead, Ryan's name flashed across the screen. CA. Was. Caleb's grabbing you. Engagement party stuff exploded. Don't be weird. That was all. No apology. No explanation. Just Caleb, as if the name did not hit some old, badly healed place in me. I read it twice while people moved around me, dragging luggage and tired children and the sour smell of plain air into the rainy night. Caleb Mercer, my brother's best friend. The boy who used to climb through our kitchen window when Ryan forgot to unlock the back door. The man who had once found me crying behind the garage at 16 and pretended not to notice so I would not have to be embarrassed. The person I had spent most of high school looking at from across rooms, training myself not to look too long. I had not seen him in almost 4 years. The last time had been at Christmas, before New York sharpened me into someone thinner and quieter, before I learned how small you could make yourself for love and still be told you were taking up too much space. Caleb had hugged me once, quick and warm, and called me kid out of habit. I had laughed like it did not hurt. I was not a kid anymore. I was 27, unemployed in a way I was calling freelance, newly single in a way I was calling mutual, and back in the town, I had sworn I would only visit after becoming impressive enough to make leaving look worth it. A horn tapped once outside. I looked up. An old blue pickup sat at the curb, rain shining on the hood. The driver's door opened, and Caleb stepped out like the weather had been waiting to frame him properly. He was broader than I remembered. Or maybe I had edited him down in memory so he would hurt less. Dark jacket, work boots, wet hair pushed back from his forehead, a short beard that made his face look rougher, older, unfairly steady. For a second, he just looked at me through the rain. Then he smiled. Not big, not dramatic, just that familiar, crooked lift at one corner of his mouth, like he had caught me pretending to be fine and was kind enough not to say it yet. "Ethan," he said. My name sounded different in his voice now. Lower, slower, like he had not rushed it. "Caleb." I adjusted the strap of my backpack because apparently my body had decided looking busy was safer than looking affected. "Ryan outsourced me?" He said you'd complain less if I came." He lied. Yeah, that sounded like him. He reached for my suitcase before I could tell him I had it. His hand closed around the handle, and for some stupid reason, I noticed the scar across his knuckle. A pale line I did not remember. He took the bag easily, like it weighed nothing. Like I had not packed every bad decision I owned into it at 3 a.m. "I can carry my own suitcase," I said. "I know." He put it in the back seat anyway. The rain was cold enough to slide under my collar. Caleb opened the passenger door, and warm air spilled out, smelling faintly of cedar, coffee, and the clean dust of a truck that had hauled lumber more often than people. I climbed in, trying not to feel 17 again, trying not to remember the 100 times I had watched him drive away from our house with Ryan in this same truck, both of them laughing about things I was too young to be invited into. Then I saw the cup holder. A paper coffee cup sat there, steam still breathing through the small opening in the lid. I stared at it too long. Caleb got behind the wheel and shut his door. "It might be too sweet. I couldn't remember if you still drank it like dessert." I looked at him. "You remembered my coffee order?" He shrugged and checked his mirror. Vanilla latte. Extra shot. Oat milk after you. Decided regular milk was a personal attack. That was one summer. It was a dramatic summer. I should have had something funny ready. I usually did. Humor was the small lock I put on doors I did not want people opening, but there was something about the cup sitting there, ordinary and warm and impossibly specific, that made my throat tighten in a way I hated. In New York, I had spent months teaching someone how to love me in public, and he still could not remember that I hated cilantro. Caleb had not seen me in years and remembered a coffee order from when I still had acne near my jaw and drew album covers in the margins of my math homework. I picked up the cup to give my hands something to do. Still right? He asked. I took a sip. Too sweet. Perfect. Unfortunately, I said. Yes. His smile came back. Softer this time, and he pulled away from the curb. For a while, the only sound was the rain tapping the windshield and the wipers dragging it aside. The airport lights fell away behind us. The highway opened in front, black and shining, bordered by fir trees that rose like a wall against the night. I watched the reflection of passing headlights slide over Caleb's face. He drove with one hand low on the wheel, relaxed but attentive, the way he used to move through our house, like he knew where everything fragile was. So, he said after a few minutes, how was the flight? Full of babies, turbulence, and a man who watched action movies without headphones. Good to know air travel has maintained its charm. It built character. You already had character. I turned the cup in my hands. That sounds suspiciously like something people say when they mean damage. Caleb's eyes flicked toward me, then back to the road. He did not laugh. That was the problem with Caleb. Other people let my jokes pass because it was easier than asking what they were covering. Caleb had always heard the hinge underneath. Long few weeks? He asked. I looked out the window. My reflection looked pale against the dark glass. Older than I felt, and younger than I wanted to be. Something like that. Ryan knew pieces. Job ended. Lease complicated. Breakup. I had packaged it neatly over the phone so no one would worry too much, or ask why my voice kept going flat in the middle of sentences. I had told him I needed a reset. I had not told him I had spent my last night in New York sitting on the bathroom floor while Marcus packed his gym shoes and said, "You knew I wasn't ready to tell everyone," as if secrecy had been a term of service I had agreed to by loving him. Caleb did not press. He just reached toward the dashboard and turned the heat slightly higher. The gesture should not have undone me. It was heat. A knob. Nothing. But care that asked for nothing in return had become so unfamiliar that I did not know where to put it. How's the town? I asked, because silence with Caleb was becoming too full. Wet. That's your full report? Downtown got a new bakery. The movie theater finally gave up and became a climbing gym. Your aunt's bookstore still looks haunted. It is haunted. By unsold poetry collections and her judgment. She's still renting you the apartment upstairs. That's the plan. I said it with confidence I did not feel. Cheap rent. Separate entrance. Perfect place to rebuild my glamorous coastal empire. Scottaday. Someday. With come. Scottaday. Scottaday. With come. With confidence. With confidence. Confidence. Caleb was quiet for half a beat. What? I asked. Nothing. That was not a nothing silence. That was a contractor silence. His mouth twitched. There was some storm damage last week. To the bookstore? To the roof above the back stairs? Ryan said your aunt had someone look at it. Someone meaning you. Someone meaning me. I turned in my seat. And we'll check it before you settle in. The way he said it made me sit a little straighter. Caleb, it might be fine. Might be fine is what people say before ceilings collapse. I didn't say collapse. You thought it loudly. This time he did laugh, low and brief. And the sound moved through the truck with an ease that made me remember things I had no business keeping. Caleb on our porch at 19, laughing with his head tipped back. Caleb in our kitchen, stealing fries from my plate because Ryan had eaten his. Caleb leaning over my sketchbook once and saying, "You're good, Ethan," in a tone so simple I had believed him for almost a week. I took another sip of coffee and burned my tongue. The town appeared slowly. First as scattered porch lights, then the gas station near the highway, then the diner sign still glowing red at the edge of Main Street. Everything looked smaller than memory and sharper than nostalgia. The same wet sidewalks, the same murals fading on brick walls, the same flower shop where I had once bought my mother a Mother's Day bouquet with $7 in panic. Coming home always had a way of making time feel dishonest, like nothing had changed, except you. Caleb slowed at a light even though there were no other cars. Ryan wanted to come, he said. Mia's aunt arrived early. The caterer lost the deposit, and your mom apparently decided the backyard needs lanterns tonight. That sounds like my family preparing for a small gathering of 40 people. 46, last I heard. God, you'll survive. You don't know that. I know your mother. Survival is the only option. N times 7. Bree. 7 time. N times 7. Seeing. N times 7. 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 I smiled despite myself, then looked down before he could see too much of it. A message lit up my phone again. Marcus. I saw the first line before I could stop myself. Can we not end it like this? My hand closed around the phone. Not hard enough to break it. Just hard enough to remind myself I could still hold on to something without answering it. Caleb noticed. Of course he did. His gaze dipped briefly. Not to read, just to register the change in me. You need to take that? He asked. No, 1 syllable. Too quick. He nodded once and did not ask again. That should have made it easier. It made it worse. We turned off Main and onto the road that led toward the old part of town, where houses sat closer together and cedar branches leaned over the street. My brother's place was somewhere beyond the next hill, probably bright and chaotic and full of people who would hug me too hard and ask questions with good intentions. I had prepared for that. I had rehearsed being fine in airport bathrooms, in airplane windows, in the tired mirror above the sink of my empty apartment. I had not prepared for Caleb Mercer waiting in the rain with my coffee order memorized. He passed the turn for Ryan's street. I looked over. You missed it. No, I didn't. Ryan's house is back there. I know. The truck kept moving, tires hissing over wet pavement. Caleb, he glanced at me, then back at the road. His face had gone careful in that way I was starting to recognize again, the way it did before he said something practical that would somehow change the temperature of the room. Your brother's place is full tonight, he said. Your apartment may not be ready. We're going to make one stop first. The coffee warmed my palms. Outside, rain blurred the town into streaks of gold and black. And for the first time since I boarded the plane in New York, I had the strange, uneasy feeling that coming home might not be the simple retreat I had promised myself it would be. It might be the place where all the things I had outrun finally learned my name again. The one stop turned out to be my aunt's old bookstore, which sat at the corner of Harbor and Fifth like it had been left behind by a softer century. The sign still read Brooks and Page in faded green letters, though Aunt Nora had closed the place 2 years ago after deciding retirement sounded better than arguing with teenagers about whether manga counted as literature. Rainwater ran down the front windows, warping the display of sun-bleached novels she had never bothered to move. Caleb parked along the curb and killed the engine. For a second, neither of us got out. The truck ticked softly as it cooled, and the coffee cup sat empty now between us. Proof of a kindness I did not know how to return. I looked up at the dark apartment windows above the store. When Ryan told me I could use the place, I had pictured dusty but charming. A little lonely, maybe. Mine, the kind of temporary home where I could set my suitcase on the floor, close the door, and fall apart privately. Caleb reached behind the seat for a flashlight. I checked it after the storm, but not since the second round of rain. Ah, that sounds like a thing you say before bad news. It sounds like a thing I say before unlocking a door. You always this reassuring with clients? Only the dramatic ones. I followed him through the rain to the side entrance, keeping my backpack tight against my shoulder while Caleb carried my suitcase again without asking. The narrow stairwell smelled like wet wood and old paper. Halfway up, I saw the first dark stains spreading across the plaster ceiling. Wide and uneven, like a bruise. Caleb's flashlight paused on it a little too long. Cosmetic? I asked. He gave me a look over his shoulder. Right, I said. Contractor silence. At the top of the stairs, he unlocked the apartment door and pushed it open. The air inside was cold and damp. My phone light caught the shape of the room slowly. A small kitchen, sheet-covered furniture, cardboard boxes Aunt Nora had labeled with things like Misk, and why did I keep this? For one strange second, I wanted to love it anyway. I wanted the sagging shelves, the slanted ceiling, the view over Main Street. I wanted a place that asked nothing from me except rent I could afford. Then Caleb's flashlight moved to the corner near the bedroom. A plastic bucket sat on the floor, half full of brownish water. Above it, the ceiling had bubbled open in a long seam. Drops fell steadily, patient and humiliating. I stared at it. That's not ideal. No, maybe it only leaks when it rains. Caleb looked at the window, where rain was hitting the glass hard enough to sound personal. I exhaled through my nose. Great. He set my suitcase upright near the door, away from the damp. You're not sleeping here. I didn't say I was. You were about to try. You don't know that. I've known you since you tried to hide a sprained ankle at 12 because you didn't want to miss Ryan's baseball game. I opened my mouth, then closed it. I had forgotten that. Or maybe I had filed it away under things that did not matter because Caleb had been there for Ryan. Not me. But he remembered. He always seemed to remember the small, inconvenient parts of me. It's one leak, I said. Weaker this time. It's water in the ceiling in the back wall. I need to open it up. Check for mold. Probably replace some drywall. How long? If it's simple. A few days. If it's not, longer. Oh no. I walked farther into the apartment because standing still made the disappointment too obvious. The floorboards creaked under my shoes. In the bedroom, a narrow mattress leaned against the wall, still wrapped in plastic. Aunt Nora had left a note on top, written in her looping hand. Welcome home, sweetheart. Ignore the dust. It builds character. I laughed once, but it came out wrong. Caleb stopped at the doorway. Ethan, I'm fine. I didn't ask. That's because you're smarter than average. He did not smile. That made it harder. I looked around the small room that was supposed to be my reset. My proof that needing help did not mean failing. The rain kept dripping into the bucket in the other room. I could already hear how Ryan would react if I called him. He would tell me to come to his place, where his fiancé's relatives were currently taking over every surface, and my mother was probably arranging lanterns with military focus. I would end up on a couch while everyone stepped around me with kindness. Everyone would know I had come back with nowhere clean to land. I can get a motel, I said. The Highway Motel has 2 rooms open because of the engagement party weekend, and one has a heater that sounds like a dying lawnmower. You checked? I know the owner. Of course you do. And you're not paying $90 to sleep under a suspicious quilt. I turned to him, irritated mostly because he was right. Then, what exactly is your plan? My guest room. The words landed softly, but the room felt smaller after them. I looked away first. Caleb, it's dry. It has a bed. The shower works. You can stay until this place is safe. That sounds very reasonable. It is. That's the problem. He leaned one shoulder against the doorframe, flashlight loose in his hand. There doesn't have to be a problem. One. There did, though. The problem was that I had spent half my adolescence measuring the distance between Caleb Mercer and me. The problem was that he had been the first man I loved before I understood the word love could be both a truth and a liability. The problem was that I was exhausted enough to want to say yes, just because he sounded like someone who could handle the night for me. I rubbed at my forehead. Ryan knows? I texted him before I left the airport. He said, and I quote, "Don't let him be stubborn and sleep somewhere depressing. That traitor. He knows you." Apparently everyone does. Caleb's expression shifted at that. Not much. Just enough for me to regret the edge in my voice. I walked back to the main room and picked up my suitcase handle. My fingers felt cold around the plastic grip. I don't want to be a problem, I said. You're not. You don't even know what I am right now. The rain filled the pause between us. Caleb stepped closer. Careful, leaving space. Then, let's start with tired. Quote, on send. Quote 5. Quote 5 in. Quote 5. Quote 5. It was such a simple sentence that I hated him for it a little. Tired, I could admit to. Tired did not require explaining Marcus, or New York, or why I had packed my apartment in 12 hours, after pretending for months that things would get better if I just became easier to love. I swallowed. One night, he said, too easily. And tomorrow we figure out a motel, or Ryan's couch, or I become a ghost in the bookstore. Tomorrow we figure out the wall. That's not agreement. That's because you're negotiating with someone holding the keys. Despite myself, I smiled. It was small and reluctant, but Caleb saw it. He picked up my suitcase before I could stop him, and this time, I let him. His house was 10 minutes away, out past the older neighborhoods where the roads curved toward the trees. I remembered it as a place he had bought too young. A weathered one-story, with peeling paint, and a porch that sagged on one side. Now, when he pulled into the driveway, I barely recognized it. The porch had been rebuilt. Warm light glowed in the front windows. Cedar planters lined the steps, full of rain, dark soil, and rosemary. It looked like a house that had been repaired by someone patient enough to believe broken things were worth the effort. Caleb unlocked the door and stepped aside to let me in first. The inside smelled like wood smoke without the smoke, clean laundry, and something savory that had been cooked earlier and left covered on the stove. There were work boots by the mat, a stack of contractor invoices on the hall table, a framed photo of Caleb and Ryan at some fishing trip I had successfully avoided, an old picture from my high school graduation party. Ryan had one arm around me, grinning. Caleb stood behind us both, younger and clean-shaven, his hand resting on my shoulder. I stopped looking at it too fast. "Guest room's this way," Caleb said. The room was simple. A bed with a gray quilt, a small dresser, a lamp with a warm bulb. No clutter, no personal history, nothing that should have made my chest ache. Caleb set my suitcase near the dresser and opened the closet door to show me extra towels like he was giving a tour to any normal person who had not once written his name in the corner of a sketchbook and then torn the page into two pieces. "Bathrooms across the hall," he said. "Shower. Takes a second to heat. There's food if you're hungry. Creating the 7. Writing this maybe. Or creating the 7. Click that one. They're Discovermasian Rems. They're risen dollars. They're well hums. They're won $7. I ate pretzels on the plane. That's not food. It was shaped like food." He gave me the kind of look that suggested he had won this argument before it began. 10 minutes later, I was sitting at his kitchen island in borrowed socks while he reheated chicken soup and cut thick slices of bread. I had changed into a dry sweatshirt, washed airport grime from my hands, and still felt like I was wearing the day under my skin. Caleb put a bowl in front of me. "Eat. You boss everyone around in your house? Only people who think plain pretzels count as dinner." The soup was hot enough to fog my face. I took one spoonful and realized I was hungrier than I wanted to be. Caleb did not hover. He moved around the kitchen quietly, rinsing the cutting board, wiping the counter, giving me the dignity of not watching me accept care. That was worse. Somehow. People always talked about grand gestures like they were the dangerous part. They were wrong. After a while, Caleb leaned against the counter across from me. "How long are you planning to stay in town? How long are you planning to stay in town?" The spoon paused halfway to my mouth. "For the engagement party," I said. "Maybe a couple weeks. And after that? Back to New York, probably." "Probably. It's a real word. It's a hiding word." I looked up. He held my gaze, not accusing, not gentle enough to be dismissed. Just present. I hated how much I wanted to answer honestly. "My lease ended," I said finally. "Work got slow. Things with Marcus ended. Ryan knows the headline version. Before you ask." I wasn't going to. Liar. Maybe a little. The corner of my mouth moved, but I did not quite smile. Caleb's voice lowered. "Did he hurt you?" The question was quiet. No drama. No threat. Somehow that made it feel more dangerous. I looked down at the soup. Not in a way that leaves proof. Caleb said nothing for a long moment. When I finally looked at him, his jaw was tight, but his eyes were careful. "That still counts," he said. I had to look away again because the room blurred at the edges for half a breath, and I refused to cry into a man's homemade soup on my first night back in town. After dinner, Caleb walked me to the guest room and stopped in the hall. He did not come in. He did not crowd the doorway. He just rested one hand on the frame and nodded toward the room. "Sleep," he said. "Tomorrow, I'll take another look at the apartment. You don't have to fix everything. I'm fixing drywall." Caleb. His name sounded too personal in the narrow hallway. He looked at me, and for 1 second, I saw something unguarded move behind his eyes before he tucked it away. "Good night, Ethan." I lay awake longer than I expected, listening to rain move over Caleb's roof instead of leaking through mine. The house settled around me in small wooden sighs. Somewhere down the hall, a floorboard creaked, then went still. I told myself, one night was harmless, one dry bed, one bowl of soup, one man who remembered too many things. In the morning, I woke to the smell of coffee. For a moment, I did not know where I was. Then I saw the gray quilt, the rain-soft window, my suitcase by the dresser. I stepped into the hallway and found the house quiet. The kitchen empty, except for a travel cup waiting on the counter, with my name written on a strip of blue painter's tape. Outside, through the front window, Caleb's truck was gone. Beside the coffee was a note in his blocky handwriting. "Went to open up the wall before the rain gets worse. Lock up if you go out." I stood there barefoot in his kitchen, holding the cup with both hands, and understood with a kind of helpless clarity that one night had already become something else. By the time Caleb came back that morning, I had cleaned his kitchen, folded the blanket on the couch, and spent 20 minutes pretending I was not waiting for the sound of his truck. It was ridiculous. I was a grown man with a dead phone charger, a leaking apartment, and enough emotional baggage to qualify as a second carry-on. Still, when tires crunched over the wet gravel outside, my body reacted before my pride could stop it. I looked up from my laptop like I had been working. The laptop was not even on. Caleb came in with rain on his jacket and plaster dust in his hair. He paused when he saw me at the kitchen island, one hand on the doorknob. His eyes moved over the wiped counter, the washed mug, the folded blanket, then landed on me. "You cleaned. You left me unsupervised. That usually ends worse. I have matured in several areas. Debatable," he said, but there was warmth under it. He kicked off his boots and held up a small piece of damp drywall like evidence in a trial. "Bad news is, the wall needs opening. Good news is, the framing looks okay." That was the good news? For an old building in November, that's basically a love letter. I should have been annoyed. Instead, I leaned forward while he explained moisture barriers and ventilation. Caleb did not talk down to me. He spoke with the quiet focus of a man who liked fixing things properly, even when no one would see the work inside the walls. I watched his hands more than the drywall. Broad fingers, sawdust near his wrist, a red scrape across his thumb that made me want to ask what happened. The next few days built themselves around repairs. Caleb said I could stay until the apartment was safe, and I said that sounded temporary enough to be acceptable. Neither of us defined temporary. Every morning, I found coffee waiting somewhere, on the kitchen counter, in the truck's cup holder, once balanced on a paint bucket beside the bookstore stairs with a napkin tucked under it so the rain would not soak through the sleeve. He never made a ceremony of it. He simply placed care where my hand would reach for it and moved on before I could decide whether to be grateful or scared. I tried to make myself useful. At first, that meant sweeping plaster dust, labeling boxes, and holding a flashlight while Caleb stood on a ladder, shoulder pressed near the ceiling, shirt pulling tight across his back in a way that made me suddenly fascinated by water damage. Then, one afternoon, I noticed a stack of business cards in his truck with a logo that looked like it had been designed during a hostage situation. Mercer Renovation. Reliable work. Fair prices. The font was terrible. The hammer icon looked like a toothbrush. "You paid for these?" I asked. Caleb glanced over from the driver's seat. "I know that tone." "What tone?" "The one where you're about to insult me professionally." "I would never." "You already did with your face." By that evening, I was sitting at Caleb's kitchen table with my laptop open, rebuilding his logo while he made dinner and pretended not to look over my shoulder every 4 minutes. It felt strange to have work in front of me that did not carry New York's cold pressure. No client calling midnight revisions small tweaks. Just Caleb, rinsing rice at the sink, saying, "I like that one," when I tried a cleaner typeface. Just his house warm around us while rain tapped the windows. On Thursday, we were at the bookstore when his phone went off with a different tone. Caleb looked at the screen, and his posture changed. Not panic. Readiness. He grabbed his jacket from a chair. Small call near Maple. Smoke alarm. Maybe electrical. "You okay here?" I should have said yes and let him go. Instead, because returning home had lowered my dignity, I said, "Can I come?" Quote, he hesitated only long enough to measure the weather. "Stay in the truck." The call was nothing dramatic. Just an older couple's kitchen outlet smoking after rain found its way into a bad exterior line. Caleb moved with 2 other volunteer firefighters in dark jackets, calm and efficient under the porch light. He knelt beside the old woman when she got embarrassed about calling for help, and I watched his face soften as he told her she had done exactly the right thing. That was the part that got me, not the strength. The way he made fear feel reasonable. When he came back to the truck, his hair was wet again, and his cheeks were pink from the cold. He slid into the driver's seat and found me staring. "What?" he asked. "Nothing." That was not a nothing silence. That was a graphic designer silence. I laughed before I could stop myself. "You were good with her. She was scared. You didn't make her feel stupid for it." His hand rested on the wheel. Outside, the porch light blurred in the rain behind him. People usually know when they're scared. They don't need help feeling worse. I looked down at the empty coffee cup between us and thought about Marcus saying I was too sensitive, too impatient, too focused on labels. I thought about all the times I had apologized for asking to be introduced correctly, touched casually, included honestly. Maybe I had not wanted too much. Maybe I had just asked the wrong person. That night, Marcus texted while Caleb was cleaning up after dinner. I had left my phone face up on the table because I was tired of acting like it had no power over me. His name lit the screen. Then another message appeared beneath it. "I miss you. I hate that you ran home instead of talking to me." I stared until the words lost shape. Caleb saw my face from across the kitchen. He dried his hands, walked over, and turned the phone face down with 2 fingers. The gesture was so careful that it felt more intimate than if he had touched me. "You don't have to answer tonight," he said. "He always does that," I said. "Makes it sound like I left because I was dramatic. Like the problem was me walking away, not him keeping me in a drawer for 2 years. Caleb stayed on the other side of the table, close enough to hear, far enough not to trap me. "A drawer?" he asked. I laughed once without humor. Yeah. He loved me when the door was closed. At home, on quiet Sundays, in places where no one knew him. But at work parties, family stuff, anywhere public, I was his friend Ethan, his roommate once. I paid half the rent and still got downgraded. Caleb's jaw moved. That sounds lonely. It was such a plain sentence. No advice. No outrage on my behalf. Just the truth, set gently on the table between us. I looked at him then. Really looked. And something in me gave way by an inch. It was. But his eyes held mine. Caleb looked less like the untouchable man from my teenage years and more like someone standing at the edge of his own confession, careful not to step where he had not been invited. I wanted him to say more. I was afraid he would. Instead, he slid my phone back across the table, still face down. "You get to decide who has access to you, Ethan. Not him." Note: for the rest of the week, we lived inside that sentence without discussing it. I redesigned Caleb's cards, then his estimate template, then the sad little website Ryan had built for him on a Sunday, with too much confidence. Caleb pretended I was doing him a favor. I pretended I was only paying for the guest room in labor. But every morning there was coffee. Every ride had the passenger seat cleared. And every time someone from town called me Ryan's little brother, Caleb corrected them with a simple, "Ethan's got his own name." By Saturday evening, Ryan and Mia's casual dinner had turned into 12 people standing around their kitchen with drinks, appetizers, and opinions. Caleb arrived late, smelling like rain and sawdust, and took the empty place beside me without asking. Not too close. Not far enough. His shoulder nearly brushed mine whenever someone reached past us for chips. Then Daniel Voss walked in. An old classmate with a clean haircut and the confident smile of a man who had never once wondered if he was too much. He kissed Mia on the cheek, clapped Ryan on the shoulder, and ended up beside me at the counter with a story about his first week back from Portland. He remembered me immediately, laughed at my jokes loudly, and asked about New York, like the answer fascinated him. It was harmless, probably, but after months of feeling like someone's inconvenient secret, being noticed in a bright kitchen felt almost reckless. So you escaped to New York and came back cooler, Daniel said. I came back unemployed and sleep-deprived. That's just cooler with better lighting. I laughed because it was stupid, and because I needed the room to see me laugh. I needed to feel like someone could want my attention without checking who might be watching. Daniel touched my sleeve again when he asked about my work, and I let it happen. Not because I wanted him. Not really. But because Caleb was across the room, quiet as weather pressure, and I could feel his gaze like heat through glass. Ryan was talking beside Caleb, waving a chip around while explaining something about the caterer. Caleb nodded at all the right places and heard none of it. His eyes moved from Daniel's hand to my face, then away when I caught him. That should have satisfied some petty part of me. Instead, it made me ache. Jealousy meant nothing if it could not become honesty. I had already survived being wanted in rooms where nobody else was allowed to know. Mia passed with a bowl of olives and gave me a sharp look. Careful with the friendly ones. I'm always careful. That's what worries me. Before I could ask what she meant, Ryan called for a toast, and the kitchen gathered around him and Mia. Caleb ended up on my other side. His sleeve brushed mine once, barely, but he did not move away. Ryan said something loud and affectionate about Mia making him a better man, which made their friends cheer and Mia wipe at one eye. I felt happy for my brother in a clean way that surprised me. He loved like a golden retriever, broke furniture, loudly, clumsily. When the toast broke, Daniel stepped closer again. A few of us are going to the harbor room after this. You should come. The bar with the sticky floor? It's nostalgic. It's a biohazard. Come anyway. I opened my mouth with an easy excuse ready, but Caleb spoke first. He's got an early morning. I turned slowly. Caleb looked calm, impressive for someone who had just inserted himself into a conversation like a locked door. Daniel's eyebrows rose. Does he? Caleb's eyes stayed on me. Apartment repairs. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I didn't realize my schedule had a spokesperson. Ryan laughed from somewhere behind us, oblivious. Daniel held up both hands, amused, and wandered toward the living room. The moment he was gone, the air between Caleb and me changed. It barely existed on the surface, but my skin knew it. I left the kitchen first. The porch was cold, rain misting under the roofline in the yellow light. I stood near the railing and breathed in wet cedar, trying to calm the part of me that wanted to be unfair because unfair would hurt less than hopeful. Behind me, the door opened and closed. Ethan, Caleb said. I did not turn around. You don't get to do that. Do what? Act like you have a right to be jealous and then hide it behind drywall. He was quiet. I faced him. The porch light cut across his face, showing the tiredness near his eyes, the tension in his mouth. He looked like a man holding a door shut from the other side. You told Daniel I had an early morning, I said. Did I? I shouldn't have said that. That's not an answer. No, he said. You didn't. The honesty took some of the fight out of me and made room for something more dangerous. Then why? Caleb looked past me to the street. For a second, I thought he would retreat into one of those practical silences I had started to hate. Then he said, very quietly, I didn't like watching him touch you. My breath changed before I could control it. There it was. Not enough. Too much. A match struck in a room full of old paper. Caleb, I know. No. I don't think you do. My voice came out lower than I intended. You can't say things like that and then pretend they're protective reflexes. I'm not 16. I'm not Ryan's little brother hiding behind the garage anymore. His eyes came back to mine. Something in them flinched at the memory, and suddenly I wondered if he remembered more than I had allowed myself to hope. "I know you're not," he said. "Then stop treating me like I am." "I'm trying not to." "Trying not to what?" He looked at me for a long time, and the rain filled every space he refused to step into. "Want something I shouldn't want." The porch seemed to drop away beneath my feet. I had imagined hearing some version of that sentence when I was younger, usually while staring at his truck taillights until they disappeared. Back then, it had been impossible fantasy. Now, with 2 years of being hidden still bruised inside me, the words did not feel like victory. They felt like a warning. "Shouldn't because of Ryan?" I asked. Caleb looked toward the lit kitchen window, where my brother's laugh rose above everyone else's. "Because Ryan trusts me." The answer landed exactly where he feared it would. I nodded once, though nothing in me agreed with him. "Right, Ethan. No, I understand." I looked down at my hands, then back up. "You can be jealous. You can remember my coffee order. You can ask me to stay in your house and look at me like that when someone else touches my sleeve. But the second this has to be real, Ryan's trust is the first thing between us." That's not fair, isn't it?" His jaw tightened. "I'm trying to do this right." "Do what right? Not hurt anyone? Not make things messy? Not want me where people can see?" Pain moved across his face so quickly I almost softened. The door opened behind him, and both of us went still. Mia stepped out with a trash bag, took one look at us, and pretended the air did not feel like a struck wire. "Just ignore me," she said, moving down the steps. Trash has no timing. The interruption should have broken the moment. Instead, it made everything more visible. We were adults, standing on a porch, acting like teenagers, because the man inside happened to be my brother. When Mia went back in, Caleb rubbed a hand over his face. "Let me drive you home." "When? Which home?" He closed his eyes for half a second. I regretted it immediately, but I did not take it back. The drive to Caleb's house was silent except for the wipers. Coffee was not in the cup holder this time, just an old receipt and a tape measure. I stared at the empty space like it had accused both of us. Caleb drove with both hands on the wheel, every inch of him locked down. At the house, I got out before he could open my door. Inside, I headed for the guest room, but he said my name again from the kitchen doorway. I stopped. "I knew," he said. My hand tightened around the strap of my bag. "Knew what? One?" He did not move closer. "That you had a crush on me." The air left my lungs in a thin, humiliating breath. For a moment, the hallway was 17 again. The garage, the sketchbook, Caleb pretending not to see my red eyes because I had overheard Ryan joking that I followed him around like a lost dog. I turned slowly. "You knew." "Not at first. Later, maybe. Enough. And you never said anything. You were young. I wasn't asking you to do anything about it." "I know. Then why tell me now?" His face was open in a way I had wanted for years and feared for days. "Because it wasn't nothing to me." The words struck softer than they should have. Caleb took one step, then stopped, as if the space between us had rules written only he could see. "It couldn't be anything then," he said. "But that doesn't mean I forgot you when you left." I wanted to believe him so badly that it made me angry. "You don't get to turn memory into almost love," I said. "Not with me. I'm not trying to." "Yes, you are." My voice cracked, and I hated that too. "You're giving me just enough to feel chosen, and then reminding me why I can't be." Caleb looked like I had put my hand straight through his ribs. He said nothing. Maybe because I was right. Maybe because he was still trying to protect everyone with the same silence that was cutting me open. I stepped back toward the guest room. He whispered my name once, not to stop me, only because he did not know where else to put it. I closed the door gently. That felt worse than slamming it. On the other side, I stood in the dark, listening to Caleb remain in the hallway before his footsteps finally moved away. I had wanted him for years when wanting him had been safe because it was impossible. Now he wanted me back. And somehow that hurt more, because wanting was not choosing, and I had promised myself, somewhere between a New York bathroom floor and a rainy airport curb, that I would never again build a home inside someone else's hesitation. Morning made everything worse because nothing looked dramatic enough to match how it felt. Caleb was already gone when I came out of the guest room. No coffee on the counter. No blue painter's tape with my name on it. No mug waiting beside the sink. Just a clean kitchen. A gray sky through the window. And the kind of silence that knows exactly what it is doing. I stood there looking at the empty spot where care had been placed every day like proof I had not imagined it. Then I made my own coffee. Too bitter. Too hot, and drank it standing up because sitting at his table felt like trespassing. At the bookstore, Caleb worked like a man trying to become a tool in his own hand. He measured, cut, carried, patched. He explained what needed to be done in short, practical sentences, and did not look at my mouth once. I tried to help, but every movement between us had been stripped of ease. When I held the flashlight, his fingers no longer brushed mine. When I asked if he wanted lunch, he said he had grabbed something earlier. Though the trash can in his truck was empty, the passenger seat was clear, but not saved. The cup holder held screws. By noon, Ryan showed up with sandwiches and the oblivious confidence of a man who believed food could fix anything. He found me scraping old tape from the window frame while Caleb stood inside the open wall, checking studs. "Look at you two," Ryan said. "Whole renovation crew." Caleb did not smile. "It's mostly drying time now." Ryan glanced between us then, and for once his face shifted with actual awareness. Maybe he saw how I did not tease back. Maybe he noticed Caleb refusing to stand within 3 feet of me. My brother was blunt, not stupid. After lunch, I went downstairs to find a broom in the storage closet. The old floorboards above me carried voices too clearly. I heard Ryan first, lower than usual. "What the hell is going on with you and Ethan?" I stopped with one hand on the closet door. Caleb answered after a pause. "Nothing. Don't do that. I know you. You know he's had a rough few weeks." "I'm helping with the apartment." Helping doesn't look like you, staring at Daniel like you wanted to throw him through a window. My face burned, though no one could see me. Caleb's voice dropped. "Keep your voice down." "So I'm right." "No." "Caleb." Another pause. Longer. Worse. When Caleb spoke again, every word sounded chosen and sanded flat. "I'm not going to make him another complication. End. 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 End." The sentence entered me cleanly. No explosion. No theatrical break. Just a quiet internal folding, like paper creased too many times in the same place. I did not wait to hear the rest. I took the broom, walked out the back door into the alley, and stood in the rain behind the dumpster until my breathing evened out enough to return upstairs with a face that belonged to someone else. Complication. I turned the word over while sweeping plaster dust into a neat pile. It was not cruel, not exactly. That made it harder to hate. Son, Marcus had called me complicated too, though he used gentler words. Timing, family, work, pressure, privacy. All of them had sounded reasonable until I realized reasonable could still leave you alone at parties pretending not to want someone's hand. Caleb tried to talk to me twice that afternoon. I made it easy for him not to. A short answer. A turned shoulder. A joke with no door behind it. Ryan left before dinner, unusually quiet, and Caleb drove me back to his house under a sky the color of wet cement. The cup holder was empty again. I looked at it once, then out the window. "You hungry?" he asked. "No. You should eat." "I'm not 12 with a sprained ankle." His hands tightened on the wheel. "I never thought you were." I laughed softly. "That is almost believable." He pulled into the driveway and shut off the truck, but I got out before the silence could ask anything of me. Inside, I went straight to the guest room. Not my room. The guest room. Caleb's house had given me a dry place to sleep, but it had never been mine, and the difference suddenly mattered. I packed my clean clothes into the suitcase and left the dirty ones in a laundry bag because sorting them felt too intimate. Then I booked a bus ticket to Portland for the next morning. There was a short-term design contract there, one I had ignored because it paid badly and started too soon. Now those sounded like advantages. A city where nobody knew Ryan, nobody knew Caleb, nobody remembered my coffee order or my teenage face. I could rent a room, work too much, become useful again, I could leave before someone else decided leaving was best for me. Mia called just after 9. I almost did not answer, but she had the patience of a woman marrying into my family, which meant she would simply call again. You disappeared after lunch, she said. I was there. Physically, sure. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my half-zipped suitcase. Did Ryan send you? Did Ryan send you? No. Ryan is stress-eating cereal and pretending he is not emotionally invested in things he does not understand. Despite everything, my mouth twitched. Mia's voice softened. Ethan, I don't know what happened, and I won't ask you to explain it before you're ready. But I saw Caleb after you left the porch last night. Mia, he looked like someone had handed him exactly what he wanted, and a list of reasons he wasn't allowed to keep it. That doesn't help. I know. She sighed. But maybe this does. You are allowed to want someone who is scared. You are not required to wait for him to become brave. The room blurred for a second. I blinked hard. I'm tired of being patient with men who make fear sound like morality. Crate. Die. Kara. Then don't be. The quiet after that was kinder than advice. When we hung up, I found Caleb in the kitchen. He was standing at the sink, not washing anything, both hands braced on the counter. The overhead light made him look older, tired, human in a way I might have forgiven if forgiving did not feel like volunteering for the same wound twice. I heard Ryan today, I said. His shoulders went still. Not all of it. Enough. He turned slowly. Ethan, what you heard, was you making me smaller so I would fit inside your conscience? No. The word came out rough. That is not what I meant. But it's what you did. My voice stayed calm, which felt worse than anger. You decided I was a complication. You decided the cleanest version of this was you wanting me quietly and then calling it responsibility. His face tightened. Ryan is my family. Ryan is my family. He's mine too. I know. Do you? I stepped closer, not enough to touch. Because you keep acting like choosing me means betraying him. Like I'm something that happens to the family instead of someone in it. Caleb looked away, and that was the answer I needed before he found words. I nodded. I can't do this again. His eyes snapped back. Again? With Marcus, I kept translating hesitation into love. I kept telling myself he needed time. That pressure made things complicated. That privacy was not the same as shame. Then one day, I realized I had become fluent in excuses. My throat tightened, but I kept going. I won't learn yours too. He looked like he wanted to cross the kitchen. He did not. Maybe that was restraint. Maybe cowardice. Maybe, with Caleb, those two things had worn the same coat for so long he could not tell them apart. I don't want you hidden, he said. Then why do I feel hidden every time you get scared? The question stayed between us until neither of us could stand inside it. Caleb whispered, I'm sorry. I believed him. That was the cruel part. I believed he was sorry. Believed he cared. Believed there were entire rooms inside him that had my name written on the walls. But an apology was not a doorway unless someone walked through it. I went back to the guest room and closed the door. This time, I locked it. Before dawn, I carried my suitcase down the hallway in the blue dark. Caleb's house was quiet, the kind of quiet that made every zipper, every breath, every careful step sound like betrayal. In the kitchen, I paused by the counter. No coffee waited there. I almost laughed. It was better that way. Easier, still. I tore a page from the small notebook in my backpack and wrote only 2 lines. Thank you for giving me somewhere dry to land. I need somewhere that doesn't make me feel temporary. I left the note beside his keys. Outside, rain had softened into mist. I walked down the porch steps with my suitcase bumping behind me, past the rosemary planters, past the truck with its empty passenger seat turned toward the house. I did not look back until I reached the end of the driveway. Through the front window, a light came on. Caleb appeared in the hallway a moment later, barefoot, hair mussed from sleep, my note in his hand. Even from that distance, I saw the exact second he understood. Not that I was angry, not that I was hurt, that he had waited too long to choose, and I had chosen myself first. I kept walking because stopping would have made the whole thing harder. Behind me, the porch door opened. I heard Caleb call my name once, rough with sleep and something closer to fear, but I did not turn around. The mist clung to my face, my suitcase wheels caught in the cracks of his driveway, clicking and stumbling behind me like they were also unsure about leaving. At the road, I lifted my hand toward the rideshare creeping under the streetlight, its headlights pale in the morning fog. "Ethan, wait." The car pulled up. I reached for the handle. Caleb's voice came again, closer now. "Please." That word stopped me more than my name had. Not because it fixed anything, because Caleb Mercer did not beg. He asked, he offered, he endured. He carried heavy things without complaint. He did not stand barefoot in the rain, with a note clenched in his fist, and say please like the ground had disappeared under him. I turned. He was halfway down the driveway in sweatpants and an old t-shirt. Hair flattened on one side, rain darkening the cotton at his shoulders. He looked nothing like the careful man who always knew where to put his hands and his silence. He looked caught, unprepared, human. The driver rolled down the window. "You, Ethan?" I looked at Caleb, then at the car. "Yeah. Give me a minute. Give me a minute." The driver nodded and looked back at his phone. Caleb stopped a few feet away. He did not reach for me. Good. If he had touched me then, I might have forgiven him too quickly just to stop hurting. "I read the note," he said. "I figured. You were right. The words came out too plain. Too late." Still, they landed. I held the suitcase handle tighter. "About what?" "About all of it." He swallowed, eyes fixed on mine. I called it responsibility, because that sounded better than fear. I told myself I was protecting Ryan, protecting you, protecting the family. But I was protecting myself from having to want you out loud. The rideshare signal blinked softly in the fog. I wanted to be hard. I had earned hard. But there was Caleb, standing in the rain without armor, saying the one thing I had begged another man to understand for 2 years. "That doesn't change what happened," I said. "I know. You made me feel like a secret before we even had anything to hide." Pain moved across his face, and this time he did not look away. I know. The repetition should have frustrated me. Instead, it steadied something. He was not defending himself. He was not explaining the wound, until it became my job to comfort him. He was letting the truth stand there and make him look bad. "I'm not getting in that car because I don't care," I said. "I'm getting in because I care too much to stay where I'm almost chosen." I. His mouth tightened. "Then let me choose you properly." I almost laughed because the sentence was impossible at 6 in the morning, in mist, beside a bored rideshare driver and a suitcase with one broken wheel. Properly? Properly. Yes. What does that mean? It means not in my kitchen where no one can hear it. Not on the porch where I can pretend weather made me say too much. Not with Ryan kept safely outside the room. Caleb looked back at the house once, then at me. "It means I call him now. It means I call him now." My pulse kicked hard. "Caleb, no." His voice shook, but he kept going. "I should have done it before I ever asked you to stay. Not because I needed permission to care about you. Because I owed everyone honesty, and I owed you more than silence." He took out his phone. I stared at him. "You're going to call Ryan at 6 in the morning and tell him what? That I'm in love with his brother." The world became very quiet. No perfect sunrise. No easy answer. Just mist, wet pavement, a car engine idling, and Caleb saying the word love, like it had been sitting under his tongue for years, waiting for courage to catch up. I could not speak before he pressed Ryan's name. My brother answered on the 5th ring, voice thick with sleep and irritation. Caleb put the call on speaker without asking me to perform, but he angled the phone so I could hear. "Someone better be dead," Ryan mumbled. "No one's dead," Caleb said. "I need to tell you something before I lose the chance." There was a pause. "Why do you sound like that?" "Because I love Ethan." Another pause. Longer. Sharper. I closed my eyes. Ryan said, "What?" Caleb's eyes stayed on me. "I love him. I think I have. For longer than I admitted to myself. I handled it badly. I hurt him trying to act noble, and I need you to know, because I'm done hiding behind you. The silence on the phone was awful. Then Ryan said my name, not angry yet, just stunned. Ethan's there? I'm here, I said. Are you okay? The question broke something small and tender in me. My loud, blunt, impossible brother had skipped over betrayal and gone straight to me. I don't know, I answered honestly. Ryan breathed out. I could picture him sitting up in bed, Mia waking beside him, the whole world rearranging in his head. Caleb, I'm going to be mad at you later. That's fair. Maybe a lot. I know. And Ethan is not some emotional renovation project you get to fix because you're lonely. Caleb flinched but accepted it. I know that too. Ryan's voice hardened. Do you? Yes, Caleb said. He doesn't need fixing. He needs someone who won't make him beg to be seen. I failed at that yesterday. I'm trying not to fail again. No, I looked away, but not fast enough to hide what that did to me. Ryan was quiet again. Then Mia's softer voice came through, distant, but clear. Ryan, breathe. Ryan, breathe. I am breathing, he muttered. You are growling. Despite everything, I let out a broken little laugh. Ryan heard it. His voice changed. Do you want him there? The answer should have been complicated. It was not. Yes, I said, but only if he means this when you hang up too. Caleb looked at me like the sentence had gone straight through him. Ryan exhaled. Then I'm not giving a blessing like we're in some weird medieval family arrangement. You're both adults. But Caleb? Same to the 5. Bro common. Yeah, you hurt him because you're scared, and I don't care how long I've known you. I understand. No, you don't. But you will. The call ended without goodbye, which was very Ryan. For a moment, neither of us moved. The driver cleared his throat from the car. Caleb looked at me. I'll pay his cancellation fee. You better. He's witnessed a lot. That almost made Caleb smile. Almost. He stepped closer, slow enough that I could have moved away. Ethan. I remembered your coffee because it was easier than admitting I remembered everything. The way you drew when you were nervous. The way you got quiet when people called you Ryan's shadow. The way you looked at me before you learned how to hide it. His voice roughened. I told myself waiting was honorable. Then you came back, and you were not a memory anymore. You were tired and funny and hurt, and right in front of me, and I still tried to make silence look like kindness. I could feel every word. I hated that I wanted them. I loved that. For once, they were being said, where the world could hear. I can't be loved only in the spaces between other people's comfort. I said, I know. I won't do it again. You shouldn't. Caleb's eyes were wet. Maybe from rain, maybe not. Be beside me then. Not behind me. Not hidden. Not temporary. Beside me. If you still want that after I was stupid enough to make you leave before sunrise. The rideshare driver called. So, are we going or not? I looked at the car, then at my suitcase, then at Caleb's truck in the driveway. The passenger seat faced the road. Empty. Waiting. Give us 1 second. Caleb called back. I wiped rain from my cheek with the back of my hand. I still need to go somewhere. I wiped. I still need to go somewhere. His face fell before I finished. To the bus station, I said, to cancel my ticket. The breath he let out was almost a laugh and almost pain. He nodded, like he did not trust himself with more. Caleb paid the driver, then carried my suitcase back to the truck. Not because I could not, because this time, when he reached for it, he looked at me first. I let him take it. Small choice. Mine. When he opened the passenger door, there was a coffee cup in the holder. I stared at it. Caleb rubbed the back of his neck. I made it last night and put it in the fridge. It's terrible now. I picked it up. The cup was cold, the ink slightly smudged where he had written my name. You made coffee before you knew I was leaving? I made it because I hoped you'd still be here in the morning. I looked at him over the open door. He said, "I'm going to keep hoping, but I'm done making you guess what it means. I, 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 I." The bus station smelled like wet concrete and vending machine coffee. Caleb stood beside me while I canceled the ticket, his hand near mine on the counter but not touching until I turned my palm upward. Then he took it. Carefully, at first. Then, fully. When we walked back outside, Ryan's truck was pulling into the lot. Of course it was. He got out wearing a hoodie, pajama pants, and the expression of a man who had driven across town on half a cup of panic. Mia was in the passenger seat, wrapped in a coat, watching us with gentle, exhausted amusement. Ryan stopped in front of us and looked at our joined hands. Nobody spoke. Then he pointed at Caleb. "I'm still mad." "I'm still mad," Caleb nodded. "I know." Ryan pointed at me. "You should have called me. I was busy making dramatic life choices. That's my job." I smiled, and Ryan's face softened in a way he would deny later. He pulled me into a hug so sudden and hard that I nearly dropped Caleb's hand. Nearly, but not quite. Caleb stayed where he was, our fingers still linked between us, visible in the gray morning. Ryan felt it. I knew he did. His hold tightened once before he let me go. "This is weird," he said. "Probably," I said. "You're still my brother." "I know." He looked at Caleb. "And you're still an idiot." "Also true." Mia stepped out of the truck. Beautiful. Healing through insults. Very on brand. That was how it began. Not with everyone comfortable. Not with every fear solved. With Ryan grumpy and protective. Mia pretending not to cry. Caleb standing beside me in a bus station parking lot. And me realizing that being chosen did not always look smooth. Sometimes it looked messy, damp, badly timed, and real. A week later, my apartment was dry enough to move into. But I did not rush. I took the Portland contract remotely from Caleb's kitchen table. Ryan came over to help paint the bookstore walls and spent most of the afternoon glaring at Caleb until he finally got tired and asked where the sandwiches were. Mia picked the color for the stairwell. Aunt Nora declared the whole situation scandalous and then told Caleb he had good shoulders for carrying boxes. And every morning, there was coffee. Sometimes on the counter, sometimes in the truck, sometimes in Caleb's hand when he came in from the rain, holding it out like a promise he intended to keep in ordinary ways. He did not call me kid again. 17, when the sire wrote, he did not introduce me around town as Ryan's brother unless he was correcting himself with a smile. He said my name like it belonged to me. The first time he held my hand at my mother's dinner table, Ryan choked on his drink, then recovered badly and asked someone to pass the potatoes. Caleb did not let go. Neither did I. Later that night, we sat on Caleb's porch while rain moved softly through the rosemary. His truck was parked in the driveway, passenger seat empty for once, because I was beside him instead. He brushed his thumb over my knuckles and looked out at the wet street. "I should have picked you up sooner," he said. I leaned my shoulder against his. "You picked me up when I landed." "That's not what I mean." "I know." The porch light warmed the side of his face. For the first time in weeks, maybe years, I did not feel like I was waiting outside someone else's life, hoping to be invited in quietly. I was there, seen, chosen, kept, without being hidden. Sometimes coming home is not about returning to the place that knew you first. Sometimes it is about finding the person who finally knows how to keep you.